it's Alien Spaceship, and this is another one of my surprise lives. And also, I intended to do one a little bit sooner, but I was busy with certain things, family and things with videos and stuff. And research. I was doing some research on a couple different things and planning out some videos, which are going to be coming out soon. And I hope all of you are having a good week so far. And my week has been interesting. And I'm glad that the garden is going well, which, my garden's going well. And I've uploaded videos and shorts about that. There will be more shorts about it. Also, some noise in the distance. Again, the weather is getting kind of rough. That's the moon. It's very windy, and there's a lot of wind back and forth. The wind chimes are blowing and stuff, and this week there's going to be some rain down here. Other parts of the country, there's a lot of storms going on because of the different fronts that are coming through from the west. So, an interesting thing that occurred that I wasn't able to go live about at the time, on April 14th to 15th, like around the transition between 14 and 15, the Titanic sank. It's the 112th anniversary of that on April 15th. That's when it went down. So it was interesting. I was in some different chat rooms talking to different friends of mine about that incident in some other streams, and also watching the different animations about it and studying more about it, because on the channel I talk about the Titanic, here and there, and I've talked about the Stockton Rush incident, and that was really cool too. It was an unfortunate tragedy, but something that happened, and it shows with the Titanic sinking, it's best for people to not let the arrogance go to their head about a certain topic, and to use precautions, and that anything could happen to anybody. And in my opinion, and this was done by other YouTubers, that the Titanic wasn't, if it was hit directly, the iceberg, if it hit directly, there would have been damage, and it could have hurt people, but it wouldn't have been as the same thing as it sinking, because when you rip a giant gap in the side of the ship like that, it was too much for the flood compartments to handle, and then you have a problem there, because it sinks, obviously. Because I'll explain, the ship was designed, the Titanic was designed to hit it directly, kind of like an icebreaker, because it would have, in theory at least, now, people would have been injured, there would have been a lot of damage going on, but you would have had a situation where only 2, maybe 3 compartments would have been broken. You wouldn't have had the situation where 5 compartments are overflowing, and it has like a domino effect when it just tips over and goes under, and then the whole thing collapses under pressure and it breaks in half and sinks. So that's I've done some videos about that, about if you take Coke cans or soda cans and you put them together and you put a hole in one side, it goes down and the other side goes up, and that reflects the flood compartments, how the Titanic flood compartments worked. And this is the 112th anniversary of the sinking of it, so it's something interesting to talk about. For me to, I think it's interesting to talk about. And also, another thing is interesting about the stories of the Titanic, over 100 years ago it sunk. It's interesting to see what happened with it and the different testimonies of people that were on it and that came off of it to tell the tale. Because, a lot of people didn't make it. So I think it's good that people are continuing to talk about the Titanic sinking and what happened. And it's really miraculous how the ship was able to, when it crashed underwater, when it sunk underwater, it was able to, a lot of the interior and different mechanisms on the ship itself were able to stay intact over the other things that didn't stay intact. Like, say, it was built really well, but it obviously wasn't invincible because it sunk. And hello, people that are here. Maybe new people are coming in. I'm just talking about different things, including the Titanic sinking that happened 112 years ago. And it's an interesting topic that I like to talk about on the channel, and other things I'd like to talk about too. And, right, so, yeah, Titanic had 2 other sister ships, and they were improved in the errors that Titanic had errors, obviously, so they improved the situation on the Olympic and the Britannic by improving the flood compartments where it doesn't have a domino effect if it were to go overboard, if it were to sink underwater a little bit like the Titanic did. Well, it sunk under a lot, but they just modified it to do a little bit better than the other ships, than the Titanic, actually. I meant. Yeah, so, and do y'all like the Titanic? Do y'all think it's interesting? Is it something that y'all have looked into? I would be interested to know. And also, another thing is that there's debate about if Ismay, there's a company that was building the Titanic and the sister ships, Harland and Wolff, and Ismay was on it, and they didn't there's a situation where people think that he should have died with the Titanic itself, or he did some foul play. Now, in my opinion, he should have put the more lifeboats on the ship, because he didn't want to have more lifeboats on the ship because he didn't think it would look nice. Anybody can refute me on that. That's fine. That's, as far as I know, that's what happened. But he did save a lot of people when he was on the Titanic. He had people come on the lifeboats. And at some point, he just went on when there was no one else left. So that wasn't really a dishonorable thing. It depends on people's opinions about it. He wasn't like a captain or stuff like that. But the one that designed the Titanic went down with it, Thomas Andrews, and also the captain obviously went down with it. And some of my friends on the channel and different live streams we were talking about, if the Titanic were to sink now, you would have it would be a very different situation, and people, I think, are very different now than they were back then. Do you all agree with that? Or I would be interested to see what y'all's thoughts are about that. And there are some rip-off movies about the Titanic that were created, and North Korea created a movie about Titanic, and I'll tell you all some stuff about it if y'all don't want to. That's okay. But so the North Korean Titanic, it's like this. You all see on YouTube, different YouTubers talked about it. This octopus goes and throws the iceberg at the ship. I know it's really cringe. And then you have this mouse that falls in love with the girl. It's a very creepy, distorted version of it, but it's it's animated. It's a cartoon version, and it's very disturbing. How it's really bizarre. And the Nazis, they created a Titanic movie. I'm just going all over the place here, and it had to do with propaganda. It had to do with propaganda about stuff against England. Hey, Way of the Road. What I'm talking about, Way of the Road, is a Titanic sinking, because I was supposed to do this a little bit sooner, but I wasn't able to. But 112 years ago, the Titanic sank. Good to see you, Way of the Road. 112 years ago, the Titanic sank, and I'm just talking different facts and things about the Titanic. So I'm not talking about pirates at the moment, but I'm talking about another ship that happened way after the Caribbean pirates were there. Yeah, thanks, Way of the Road. So basically, the Nazis, they had this movie. It was against England. It was propaganda against England. That was their movie about it. And then they had Titanic 666, which is a blasphemy movie. It really is. It's a mockery of, in my opinion, the people that were deleted on the Titanic, that perished on the Titanic. And it's these influencers are going on the third Titanic, so it's a sequel to the other strange movie of the Titanic 2. And then what happens next is they go, and you all could see on YouTube that other YouTubers went in depth about this, that basically they went over there. they were going on the ship, and then this disturbed, like, witchcraft, this woman that's in the witchcraft was bringing the dead people from the Titanic back for revenge on the people that were on the third Titanic. And it's this real disturbing movie about it. And they also have a disturbing reference to Jack and Rose. And just it's disgusting that people would want to go and like make a ripoff of Titanic, the story, to not honor the people that died or tell about the story, but to make money and be stupid. I also like the North Korean version of the Titanic movie, which is a cartoon version, and it's an octopus throwing a giant piece of ice at the Titanic, and it's animated, and the mouse falls in love with a woman, and you see these people, see these distorted things in a non-religious sense. They could distort something like the Titanic, people that are up to nefarious acts to distort things. And I think it's important for people to understand that, the Titanic movie from these different perspectives. And I recently learned about these other Titanic movies that happened, because I remember the Titanic, the one from 1997, The Night to Remember, and the classic ones, and there was these other ones that came later, so it was interesting. So I think that Night to Remember was good, and they have the older ones. Some of them didn't understand about if the Titanic broke in half or not. Like, that's what some people didn't know for sure. Because when these people were in the pitch black darkness, they didn't know if it broke in half or not. Some people said it did. Some people said it went down whole. And so it's good for people to... Now, we obviously know now it broke in half, but some of the movies, like earlier ones, it would just go down straight. Then one of them, they did it when it broke in half, but it wasn't like the old ones didn't have the technology. So it's like a toy boat in a bathtub with some booms, and that was their way of seeing it broken in half. So James Cameron did excellent at the aesthetic about it breaking in half, and he building a replica of Titanic and having it sink. That was really interesting. And also the Titanic had bobbed up and down a little bit before it completely went under. It didn't just go down like when it was vertical. It kind of was sitting there for a little while, and people in the boats thought it was really not going to sink. It was just, when I did the experiment with the soda cans, it like, when the part of it breaks off, that other part of it bobs up and down a little bit. So, but of course with the weight and everything, it went down into water, obviously, eventually. If it was piloted better, in my opinion, the Titanic would have done better in that situation, but it still wasn't a good situation either way, because you're not supposed to crash into an iceberg at all. That's not the scenario people would want to see. But when you break more and more of the flood compartments, you cause a problem, a domino effect, as I said. Glad you all are chilling with me. Those that are passing through, I appreciate it, even if it's for a second. It's nice to click on the video and see what's going on. I always like looking at new things. It's what I also like to do too, see what's going on. And as I said, the weather is still breezy with clouds, and there's going to be some more, so that thing would be like last time. Yeah, and the Britannic sunk in World War One. And it was both the Olympic and the Britannic were given these like camouflage. I would pull it up, but I can't do that on a phone and show you all. But so it looks like a modern artwork. Like you'd say, like the modern age doesn't look like 1912. It's like different blues and different designs, and that was their camouflage they had on the ships. When because they didn't want them getting sunk by submarines, and it was a way to camouflage them and show them that they weren't having to do with the British war effort, in my opinion. And so the Britannic, that one sunk, and then, if I can recall correctly, the flight compartments jammed and they weren't able to close, and then it was kind of going to the shore, and then it sunk on water, and it's on its side. That one sunk whole. There was a nurse that was on the Titanic and the Britannic. They're on, she was on both of them. So I think the Titanic is a very classy looking ship, and ships now are it's like a city. The cruise ships, the slides and stuff. And have y'all ever been on one? I haven't. I personally haven't. Had an opportunity. I could have gone on one in high school, but I decided not to. And it was a senior trip. And so basically, it's a whole nothing wrong against the ships, but it's so different now than before. Like the Titanic baths, it's like at the pool. It's like a little square thing, and there's water in it. But the thing now is that with the pool, you have a slide now. It's really epic. The technology and where we were then and now, how we've progressed, is just amazing. How I'm on live on a phone talking to you all, and in 1912 they had a radio room on the Titanic, and they would do the Morse code on there, and that's how people communicated like we're communicating right now. So it's really cool that now it's evolved into what we have today, and then 112 years from now it'll be even more advanced and so forth. So it's really how humans continuing the technological advances. It's really cool. So now the pool is not known. Hello, Meridius, good to see you. And so basically what happened was the pool, when they closed the flood compartment doors, there was it's shut. So when they went and explored the Titanic with the submarines, they couldn't get in there because it was jammed shut. You would have to get to crank something to open it up, and you can't really do that too easily when it's over 1,000 feet underwater and it's sunk. But I guess you get a tool to do it if it wasn't rusted over 112 years. But so yeah, if they opened it up, you can see the pool in the Titanic, but maybe we'll never know what's on the other side or what it looks like now. Now the Turkish baths, so that's in all the door also. Right. Yes, correct. So basically there in the Titanic there's the Turkish baths, and the Turkish baths, it looks pretty good in there. You all can look it up on Google or whatever. So they went into the Turkish baths, and it pretty much everything, it's sunk underwater, and it's very, very old and decrepit looking, but still it's in good condition. The artwork is still there, like on the walls that would have been there when it was floating around, and it looks pretty good in there. And it's also creepy in a way to think about how the situation where people died in there, and people went through all that stuff, and there's still chairs in there, there's still different things, some of the stuff is intact, and it's incredible that it free falled and catapulted underwater, and all this stuff was still intact. Like there's this a couple of the rigging gears, they tested it out and it still functions perfectly fine being underwater all that time, and it's still spin. You get it, if you put a rope in there and put it back and forth, the thing would still turn. Yeah, I understand autocorrect, Meridius. Autocorrect can be cringe. And also, so I think it's interesting that people that went and explored the Titanic, but I disagree with what Stockton Rush was doing when he was trying to go and make it into an amusement park and a profit off of it. I disagree with that, and I think that if you want people we have pictures and videos that preserve Titanic's memory, but I don't think it's good to have charge people money to go see this thing. Say you're going to see something at a museum, it's you shouldn't be going and in this situation with Titanic, you shouldn't be charging people to go underwater and making a profit off the people that were deleted there. And again, Stockton Rush, he was cringing, and he was being like Captain Smith. He was being overconfident in the ability of the Titan, and it imploded, and it had catastrophic consequences. It's a lesson. And also, pretty much with the people were not recovered, that they went down with it. Some people went down with it, they weren't recovered. And so but they'll find shoes and different things from the people that they knew that there was a person there. And then there's like scavengers and graphic, details right here. But like you'll have scavengers that will go and clean up that unfortunate event. Just like on the Titanic itself, you have crustaceans that are like rusting it and eating it completely. And it's interesting to see James Cameron's what he did with the Titanic, what he was able to see and discover, and other people too. And do you all have any thoughts about the Titanic in general that are interested in that topic that I'm talking at the moment about? Because I bounce around with different things, different topics. But so if y'all had anything interesting to say about Titanic or anything at all, that would be cool. Yeah, Meridius says, agreed, it's about respect. Absolutely. And oh, that's really cool, Way of the Road. Had a ticket for it. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah. And also, and his train for Prague was about 6 hours late. Oh, wow. He had a ticket for it. Had a ticket for it, and Prague was about 6 hours late. Yeah, like, I remember with the 9/11 situation where some people use an example where, that they were late for work for some reason, or they were overslept, or they missed their flight, and they weren't deleted in the unfortunate event of the 9/11 catastrophe. So yeah, when you have a situation like that, and if you miss an appointment or miss something, you never know. Maybe you were supposed to miss it for for a certain reason. So that was in Way of the Road says, yeah, totally, that stuff is nuts. Yeah, absolutely. And then it's like, I remember seeing the deck and seeing how when you had the camera with the submarine, and how seeing the water and the waves and the lighting and all, it was just so incredible to see what he was able to capture. And it's like you could just walk on it and just chill there. And the anchor, there's an anchor system there. There's 3 anchors. It has 3 anchors. Like there's a hole in the like right in the front of the ship, there's a hole like that. And it has to do with the 3rd anchor that was going to be deployed in there if they were going to be docking. And that's what the mechanism was used for. And another situation that happened was you had where the anchors are still there in the Titanic, and it's so mysterious. It's like those anchors are just, although they're animate objects and they're not really sentient beings like us, or finite beings like we are, still it's like those anchors are just stuck there, and they're planning on going to New York and putting the anchors in the sea to dock, but it's like it's going to be frozen in time there. It's been frozen in time. And another interesting fact is that Ismay, he wanted to raise the Titanic back then, but I don't think they really understood how deep it was. They didn't have the technology to do that, and it happened and World War I happened right when they were going to consider trying to bring it back up somehow. World War I happened, and that ruined the whole world pretty much. And then World War II happened, and we got all these other wars that happened to this day where you have the whole world fighting each other. But back in that time, it was a little bit more quiet, in my opinion. And the chat has some cool stuff to say. Okay, Meridius says, the bridge in Minnesota that came down. My ex had just drove across it before the collapse. Oh, wow. Yeah, I talked about that during one of my streams, and Meridius. And yeah, you see, it's good that, he's making a cross right before the collapse were to occur. And, yeah, that's a perfect example that you get over right before something horrible happens. And they're criminally investigating that to see if there's foul play. And I saw an hour ago in Notre Dame over there in France, there's another fire going on in the 17th century. One of those buildings over there there's another fire going on. So yeah, there's mysterious stuff that goes on that we don't always have answers to. But yeah, now there's conspiracies about Titanic, and I don't mind conspiracy theories. I think they're good to look into. I don't know if every single one is true though. Now, okay, some of them are not true. So like, I don't, in my opinion, I don't believe the Titanics were switched. And I did, if you look at some of you may have seen it. If you look at the two ships, it's like they're similar looking, but they're very different looking if you really look at it. And also, the whole structure of it, the windows, the portholes, everything's completely different. You can't just take the name of one and put it on the other. And Titanic has it was like the letters were like edged in it with gold. And that is the thing, that you can't just take the plate off of one and put it on the other. And the radio room of the Titanic was in a different part than the Olympic. And to switch them both out would have taken months or a year. It wouldn't be like switching it back and forth. And we know with conspiracy theories that you have whistleblowers, that say, like with the aliens that are going on, how people are talking in the government, the Air Force, the Army, all these people everywhere are talking about aliens and all kinds of other conspiracy theories. That there's whistleblowers, but there was no whistleblowers, as people at that time, the workers weren't doing anything like that. That wasn't even thought of. And another thing that happened was you have a situation where the people that worked on the Olympic also worked in the Titanic. They would have seen a difference. The officers and stuff, they would have known that there was something different about it. They would have known that they're on the same ship. So, like, from a distance, they look alike, but up close, there's a situation where it's obviously not true. Because there's a theory that they wanted to sink it for insurance reasons. But that's not true, because, the Titanic, I said in the video, it was underinsured. It wasn't insured for that much, if I'm recalling that correctly. So I remember in the video I said it right. And that basically, if the Titanic, you switched the ships out, it would have been redundant, and they would have lost way more money because it was underinsured. So there was no reason to do that. And the Olympic was first. It was like born first. It was out there first. And the other one the Titanic came later, a little bit later, when they built the three of them. And also, they don't know what happened to, they obviously were deleted on the Titanic, but like Thomas Andrews, some people say he was like at the clock. All the movies depict him at the clock and by the fireplace changing the clock. Now, some reports say that he was seen after that doing some things with the saving people after that. And then he disappeared. But yeah, he did a lot to try to help people, and he wanted there to be more lifeboats there, because it would look cluttered looking, but like you'd have more lifeboats for everybody on board. And like there's a Titanic that was supposed to be built in 2013 by this Australian billionaire, and it still has not been built. I've seen pictures of it being built in China, and that's a really good idea, in my opinion, sarcastically, to build a ship in China, and we're going to build the Titanic in China and bring it and have that as the ship. Everything made in China is just fantastic. So that was never built, or it's like stuck in production, and they haven't put them out. But I think that it does have a good system where you have the lifeboats, in my opinion, like inside of it. Mr. Ismay would have liked that over them on the deck, because he had a problem with the lifeboats on the deck. But I think it's good, safety first, and I think it's good for people to have, the people should have had more lifeboats on there. I think that would have been a step in the right direction. Also, the funnels, they would collapse as the ship was going down. And then the whole thing fell apart because of the pressure, and because it wasn't designed to handle that. And they found out later that, like in the Titanic movie, it was raised up a little bit. It was raised up quite a bit, then it collapsed. Then it like did a free. Then it cracked in half. Really, what happened, and James Cameron did a documentary about it later. It rose up a little bit, then it cracked, and it was just a little bit different than they did it in the movie. But so the movie was very accurate. It was really cool how they got a Titanic and they like went and had it demolish itself. Yeah, that's very interesting. And the Britannic, also, it was white, and it had the Red Cross on it for the purpose of helping and saving people and stuff like that. And bouncing over to another ship sinking, the Lusitania, in World War One, the Germans were like, to not go on it, and they thought there was going to be cargo on it that could harm Germany because of the war they were doing, like, war equipment. And they went and they sunk it with a torpedo and sunk in 18 minutes. And went just right down in broad daylight. And, it shows that, that went really quick. And Titanic had sunk in like 2 hours. So, it's interesting to see the different times of the ship sinkings. And Meridius said, something are just what they are, but when there's so much done around something lead to make you wonder in different situations, because what really is a conspiracy, people figure how together to deal with something. Meridius. Absolutely. I have seen that sometimes people have conspiracy theories as a coping. Like, some people may not be able to cope with something that they see or an event that occurred, like say 9/11, and they come up with their own coping mechanism about how it actually happened. So that's absolutely true with the conspiracy theory, some of them. You could have whatever. Like, people come up with their own reasons. Good point. And also, we have these other situations that occurred where the Titanic's whistle was recovered, and they played it. And it's really eerie and creepy, that when the Titanic thing is playing, when the horn's playing, when the whistle's playing, because it's like, it was on the ship when it sunk and went underwater, and it was with all those people that were deleted. And then it's like, it could still function. As I said, it's incredible to see how it was able to function so well after it sunk. The different things on it. It's really incredible to me. I'm sure if, something now, it would just bust in a million pieces. As a joke, everything's made of plastic now. And, there's conspiracies about the boiler room on fire for 4 days. And I'm just thinking to myself, that's really impressive. You have a boiler on fire for like a couple of days or so, and it's just on fire, and everybody's like chilling. I didn't make any sense, and they're the experts, or people that I think know a lot about Titanic. I call them experts. That wasn't likely true either. But it's still good to see what theories people have about the incident. And also, I remember this situation where Thomas Andrews had this situation where he had drinks. He was talking to two ladies about the situation, about the Titanic sinking and what they had to do to be prepared. And it was an interesting story about what happened, and he didn't survive, obviously, but they did. And just had the conversation about old metal, how it lasts. Exactly, Meridius. Because, like, it lasts. It lasts. And about the Titanic being raised, which is something, they made a movie about that, the raising the Titanic. And the thing about raising the Titanic is that now, they say that it's too old and it would fall apart. I don't know if it would really fall apart, in my opinion, for sure. But I understand they wanted to have it stay there because they want to respect the people that were deleted there, and it's like a grave site and all. I'm not saying to raise it and it may break apart, but it's like, basically, there's different theories how this would be done for real. They were theorizing it could be put in a bubble thing, and it would just float up like in like a balloon. It's kind of funny to think about. And it could be filled up with the people. It was saying with a bunch of ping pong balls, and it would just float up. You need a lot of ping pong balls for that. And then how you would put these things underneath it, and it would be carried up. And I wonder if the metal underneath, or Fax Meridius, I wonder if underneath the Titanic, like, if, like, the parts of it that are under the sea floor, if it's completely perfectly, like, the paint's all still there, and everything looks, like, completely new because it's been covered for so many years and not affected like the rest of it, like no crustaceans ate off it or anything. It's like the upper part of the ship is all like crustacean looking, and then like the bottom of it would in theory maybe look just completely brand new. That would be very interesting. But yeah, like it would be an interesting concept, and it's like I don't know if it would completely break apart like they're saying, kind of like people were saying with the Titan sub. It's like it would, that it just exploded like the heat of the sun, like the hot as the sun is, and it just vaporized everybody. I knew that didn't happen, and I knew that, and I theorized when I went live about that there were parts of it that were still underwater somewhere. And I remember that was the first report, that there was pieces of it that was found, and in my opinion, graphic warning, there are human remains also there at the submersible. And so I was showing the chat that, and although like I was not a doctor like these other people or an expert, so like what do I know, but they're saying it was the heat of the sun, and it concentrated and went boom, and everything was disintegrated. Come to find out, a couple of days later or so, they went and they brought it up, and yeah, the thing was mostly intact. Everything was intact pretty much, like I thought. And then what happened was, graphic warning, there are human remains that were found from the Titan sub, like I thought. So there you go. That's sometimes, I don't know if everything is as black and white as sometimes experts say, but I'm not an expert, and experts are not wrong. They know their field. And like, I do wonder if it really could be raised, and they just don't want to raise it for obvious reasons. It's something interesting to think about. And Meridius said, we dug an old foot pedal sewing, I'm not too sure if I'm not saying that right. You can let me know if I said that wrong. I've not heard of that. A sewing machine, I think he means, he or she, up, and all the black paint and pinstripe was almost like new. Okay, see, that's what I would think. And I'll read it again because I kind of butchered it. We dug a old foot pedal sewing machine up, and all the black paint and pinstripe was almost like new. Because I've seen that before with some things in the yard or some things I dug up. It was like the part under the ground was like perfectly new. So that's my theory about the Titanic, that the under part of it is like brand new looking, and the bottom part would be in excellent shape. If like the crustacean messed up parts of it, like you could put like the pulley system, it works perfectly fine, and you could just still use it without any WD-40, without any lubricant. Like, we need all this stuff now. This thing could just go boom, boom, boom. I mean, as I said, they built that ship really well, and if, you could, it was like indestructible, but it just was not invincible. Because it's like, if you were to blow it up with a bomb, or if you were to slash a giant gash in half the ship. Hello, middle ground. Good to see you. We're talking about the Titanic. So basically, or if you, because I looked at the gash in the side of the Titanic, and it's like half the Titanic, it was slashed open by this thing. And yeah, that's too much of the ship. Like, you're going to gash the entire, in theory, just hypothetically, the entire ship open. Of course it's going to sink. Because when they said it was unsinkable, what they meant was, they should have said, which that was arrogant, they should have said it was, oh, I see. They should have said it was nearly indestructible. But it was not invincible, because it's like, you have 2, 3, 4 even, and the flood compartments were breached, it would be okay. But at 5, it would go down and go down, then it would go over the top, and it would be like a giant domino effect. effect. No, I'm alien spaceship sound effects. Well, that is an affect. All right. So, and I like, as I said a couple of times in the stream, I like the experiment when I took. See how to describe this? Like you take a soda can, like a Coke can, an empty one, and you put like there's a part you drink out of. You put that side on the top and the metal side on the bottom, and you connect both of them just like that together with tape, and you puncture a hole in it, and it does the same thing. It goes down, and then with the tape, say if you have it a certain way, it'll break, and then the other side just kind of bobs up and down, then it goes down. But now since it's a soda can, you don't have the same situation. It just kind of bobs there unless you poke a hole in it. But when you're talking about a massive ship, the Titanic did bob down like a cork before it went down completely. It did stay there for a little while. And people are walking around or whatever, and they're like, hey, maybe really unsinkable because it's still chilling there. But then it went boom, it went down. And, rest in peace to the people that were on board. And Meridia says, the bulkheads were open at top. If sealed or went all the way up, it would have been different. Exactly. I was wondering when I was in grade school, like, okay, I thought they closed the top parts off. As I designed the ship where the top parts were closed off. I'm like, well, the Titanic shouldn't have sunk if, I don't understand, but it is what it is. Then it's like, later, I'm like, oh, okay, they're open. So, of course, they're just going to spill over, and it's going to cause a problem if you do it that way. But with the Olympic and the other one, they put it all the way to the top so they wouldn't go over. And some of the movies give good insights to the theories of what I thought the people would react. And so you have this situation where the bulkheads, like Thomas Andrews said, okay, it's 5 compartments are breached, and it's going to go over and over and over, and it's going to sink. And this was not considered in her design, so they must have intended it was going to directly hit something, and then it would be okay. But these people that were piloting the ship, they meant well. They're like, oh, well, okay, I got to completely miss this thing because the ship might sink. You see, they jinx themselves. If it's really an unsinkable ship, they could go into it, and it's not going to do anything, but they second-guess themselves and cause the ship to sink. They weren't too sure about the situation. So that was an interpretation from one of the movies, the various movies that were created. And then another movie that was created, this one was in color, but it was not the 97 one. The captain was real angry with Murdoch, and he was like, okay, 5 compartments are breached. Right here, right here, right here. But if you go pilot the ship into the iceberg, 2 compartments are going to be breached. But if you go side and slice the side open, I'm paraphrasing, they're going to go back and back and back, and it's going to cause the compartments to overflow, and it'll cause the whole thing to sink eventually. So, yeah, that's what I thought. Like, I'm sure, like, in the real situation, in my opinion, they were like, dude, you weren't supposed to go and try to miss it. You're supposed to go into it. That's what my theory, and see, other people thought of that. Because it's like, like an icebreaker. Those icebreakers, I saw a movie about icebreakers where the Russians, they were trying to save a dolphin that was trapped in the ice. And the Americans were collaborating with the Russians, with the Soviet Union at the time. It wasn't Russia like it is now, but it was a Soviet Union, and they were having an icebreaker that was going through to save the ice. Suppose it was something like that, and it just would have like got stuck in there. There would have been a lot of catastrophes, like a lot of injuries would have happened. People would have been thrown out of their bunks, and it would have been horrible, but it wouldn't have sunk. And they would have had that situation. And then what happened was there was debate about the ice fields. And with the ice fields, with Captain Smith, was he pressured by Ismay to go faster and faster and faster? And actually, from what the people that were researching Titanic were saying, is that actually what Ismay did was he was excited. He was like, this ship's so cool and it's so great. It's going to go in there and surprise everybody on Tuesday night. Because he was just enthusiastic about Titanic and her ability to get to point A to point B. He wasn't trying to pressure the captain to go too fast, and there was like 16 boilers, if I remember that correctly, and basically only a few of them were lit. So they didn't have all of the boilers lit. So they weren't trying to go full speed. You have like 16 boilers going. That thing's going to be like it's going to be like a Mustang. But then the reason why they're going fast in the ice field was because they were trying to get out of the ice field as soon as possible, because they didn't want to have a problem where they would be stuck in an ice field. So they're just trying to get out of there as quickly as possible. And I assume that they may have thought, in my opinion, oh, if we hit an iceberg, it'll be okay because only 2 flood compartments will be broken. But then everybody wakes up and said, well, we try to miss it, and we just sliced a giant hole in half the ship. So, yeah. And yeah, so that wasn't good news. And they're also saying that the observation from Mr. Andrews is not known. Like, if he were to survive it, and he could have given his account on his opinion of the constructional catastrophe of the Titanic and how it sunk and like what happened. No one knows like what his thoughts are because he went down with it. So we will never know what his thoughts are about why it sunk or what they could have done right or wrong. Just studying the history about it, they should have, there is no lights like the one in my face. And the lights were much dimmer than the one from the 97 film. It was much more dim, and it wasn't like these giant headlights you could possibly have now. And they didn't have their binoculars, and it's pitch black. There's no moon, so the water wasn't breaking. It was like a milk pond. It was like a glass. And then they see something, and then they try to miss it. It doesn't work out too well. As I said, Britannic was hit by scratching something. They have these, these things underwater, these mines and things, and it went boom, and then it, had a problem and it sunk, as I said before. And Olympic was never sunk. It never sunk. It stayed afloat it throughout its whole time. And back when the people in that time period, they thought that the Olympic, the way we think of Titanic, like this Olympic never sunk. It was a cool ship, and it was never it was cool. So everybody was happy with it and thought it was this amazing ship to talk about. But not Titanic, because Titanic failed horribly. So no one really was interested in that ship until many, many, many decades later. Then going to our time period after the 1900s to the 2000s. Now here we are talking on the phone about it. So basically, the Olympic was scrapped. It could have been saved and been a hotel or been a place where people could have eaten. That would have been really cool. But yeah, the Olympic was scrapped. And Meridius said something. I working a drill rig, and things went horribly wrong, and things just seemed to react from one bad to another in rapid time, no matter what we did or prepared. Thank you for sharing that with us, Meridius. Yeah, sometimes bad things happen, and a drill rig, that is some hard work. Hats off to you, okay? That's some really hard work. And, you could look back on an incident and say what you could have done differently. Like, I've looked at Hurricane Katrina or any situation in my own life. I could look back and say what I could have done differently. After the fact, we could say what could have been this or that. But then again, it's like that you could know after the fact, but when you're in the moment, you did the best you could have done. And sometimes bad things happen. And with mistakes, it's best that we learn from mistakes and correct the error if something were to happen again. But yeah, just, trial and error, taking risks. It's good they took the risk of trying to take, Titanic out of harm's way. It's good that they tried to save the people from colliding with it and other things that happen. It's good that people do the best they can and we can learn from mistakes that happen. So I do think that's important. I'm glad that you pointed that out. And hats off to the people that were in the Titanic that were doing the pumping it out, that went down with it, and people that were in the radio rooms, in the radio room, not rooms, and they were doing the Morse code until the water was in the room, and it's going to short out, and they had to go. So, and it's in the radio room is like what we're doing now, or it's like a text message or a group or a live stream, but it was all done with dots and dashes, because they showed the transcript on YouTube about what the people were saying, and all these other ships were like, okay, Titanic's having a problem. And they're like, oh, no, Titanic's not having a problem. and they were like, I don't know, Petey, be quiet, you're being rude, or about some other topic, or like, oh, the weather's nice today, and Miss Harold said such and such to Mr. Logan, or things like that, and then like, oh wait, the Titanic's having a problem, and then they're like, okay, it's hit an iceberg. Is anybody close to it? There aren't. It's like a live stream. It's like a live stream chat. It was very interesting. And then the Titanic was communicating. At some point, it didn't communicate anymore, and they were like, prayers to the Titanic, and it just went silent. And that's eerie. As I said, it's like the live streams. And see, it's the same type of technology. It's just it has advanced since then. The Olympic idea as a restaurant sounds like it would have been a great idea. Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Especially looking back now, like, we don't have ships like that anymore. Not that the cruise ships we have now are bad, they're interesting. But, like, those were some real classy looking ships. They're so beautiful looking. They're very interesting looking. And there's one of the White Star Line's ships is still, it's a very tiny little dinghy boat, and it's on display. It's a very tiny ship that can fit in my yard, and it's the only White Star Liner that's there, and it looks just like Titanic, but very small. And but yeah, it would have been a great restaurant, and it's horrible to see. They just destructed it, like it was just some BS thing. It's like it has a grand staircase, it has all these luxurious things in it, and it has the other decks for the other people and for the different classes and stuff, which is also interesting too, in the different baths and things. You're just going to tear it down like it's a bad dream, like it's a rotten chicken coop or something. And yeah, just different how things are now. And then with the grand staircase, that's really interesting, because with the grand staircase, it's like the ships had them, and like the Olympic had it and stuff. And then I always was like, when I was a kid, I'm like, there has to be some light fixture inside the dome, because it's like nighttime and it looks like it's bright daylight. I'm like, yeah, of course there's some light fixture in there. And I built a model Titanic where I saw that part of the Titanic where it has the grand staircase, and I put that there. So basically what happened was, you have, this nice architecture and nice wood work, and it's like underwater, it's all crustaceans took it over, and it's really interesting how it, like, the transformation it had. But that's, as I said, very interesting design of the ship. And so I built the model Titanic in 2015. I was in high school, and there was some, I don't know, sometimes there's like shootings out in the distance, and that was going on, and I went in, and they're almost telling me it takes time, but I did it all in one night. Not bragging, it was very simple. It's like building a little Lego thing, like a little Lego castle, like a little tiny one. And I read the instructions, and I put it together, and I put the different things on. Now the front part of it, like where we would pilot the ship, I put the thing a little bit upwards, where it's supposed to go a little bit downwards. But that one, I didn't completely like look what I was doing, but I still got it perfectly fine. And it's really nice. The model is very beautiful looking, and I put all the different things there with the glue. And at school, I would take it with me, and I would look over the instructions of the Titanic. And the Eamons Fitzgerald was another bad one. I've not heard of that. I'll look into it. Thanks for telling me about it. And also, I would look at the instructions, and the instructions in the building a Titanic model, they talk to you a little bit about how it was constructed, because you build a model, then you build the whole ship. So I think it's very interesting about how you build a little model of the ship, and then you construct it, and it gets, you make it bigger on a larger scale. So I remember then, like, you have the different funnels, and you put the black parts on, then you put the funnels on, not in order, but you put the funnels on, then the black part on. It was really cool. It's like building a Titanic from scratch. And I like how they built the Titanic, because it's like a puzzle pieces. because they have the white part of it, is stacked on the other parts. And it's a long thing. It's long, and they build it on top. Yes, I had the model. It's a long rectangle, like, thing. Now, one time my mom actually knocked it over one day, and so two of the black parts of the funnel are missing, but it's still there, it's intact, and it looks great. It still looks good. And as I said, it's 99%, cool looking. I'd say it's 100% cool looking, but it's like little, like I said, that one pull part could have been down a little bit lower. I looked. I do want to build another Titanic model also. It's been many years since I've done it, but yeah, I'll always have the model as long as I, am alive. And I like construction. I like building things. I always like building things. And since I was a kid, I like building things. Something interesting of mine. I also like, computers, obviously, and different things like that. And with like the live stream stuff, like on the computer version, you have these things where, like on OBS, you could put different mechanisms in there. Like you could have the callers come through, and then you could have the StreamYard thing on one window, and have the different windows. And like with the computer itself that was built, it was built with different parts you can put together. And I remember with the Titanic model, when I put it together, how you just put these different parts together and they all like fit into place like a puzzle or something. Like it's not like a random construction. It was put there intentionally. And then like I first got into Titanic, there was a book fair, and I went to a cool school, a nice school. And then like I went to class with a child of somebody that was part of the family that owned the school. And he had a book about the Titanic, and for some reason none of us knew about these specific books for some reason, but he would know about it. He knew about it first, and I'm like, okay, I want to look into this Titanic book. And I went in the book fair and I got it. And it was so interesting, like these pop-up pages and stuff. I'm like, we got these other books. So this guy, he found out where these other ones are. And then it was like, then they thought, I was copying off of him because I wanted the book he had. But no, I just thought it was interesting about the Titanic and the history about it, and this pop-up pages in the book. But it was cool, a cool place. And that's how I started. And I'm glad that he got that book and I also got it too. And Meridia says, like touching the real thing, each piece. Exactly. And that's how you would build something. You would go and make a model of it, and then you go and scale it up. And then, because remember, because there's the red part of it, the red part of the Titanic model I built, this was like cool. It was like colder weather. It was like real cold during this time. And it's just a complete bare, it was like nothing, there's no floors or anything in it. This bare red room. And then you put the black part on top of it, and you put the glue on. Then you put the white parts. These all have names, but I'm calling them parts. And you put the white part on top. And then you have the yellow funnel, then the black funnel on top of that, the little piece. And then you have, the bow and the stern. You put the decks on both sides. And then you have these little white strips. You put them both sides, and on that, and then on the other side. They have the different shapes for the bow and for the stern. And then there's these other pieces where you have to get tweezers and put the rigs for the anchor and the anchor parts and stuff. You put that on there. And then the stuff, on the other side. And then also, I'm not forgetting about the other things. You got to get the lifeboats, the few lifeboats that Mr. Ismay wanted on it, just a few of them. Not putting him down, he wasn't completely bad, but you put them on different sides of the ship, and then you put the grand staircase, and they'll tell you in the instructions. It's so cool. It's like this part goes here, that part goes there. They tell you what it is, and they label it like F12, F3, and they also call the different decks. So as I said, like you could like build a Titanic, like a Titanic 2, and get this little 2 pieces of paper out and be like, all right, I know the whole ship now. It's like, step aside, everybody. I got this. Hold my beer. And there also are models for the Britannic and the Olympic. Those are also nice models I haven't built yet. But there's models like a model kit for a battleship and for an airplane. I was interested in the boat, the ship. And I don't know, like I thought it was like, yeah, because the Titanic was real dark. It's a real dark color. And I'm like, it's not blue. It's not a dark blue. I'm like, no, it was something different when I was little. I'm not colorblind, but sometimes I'll get mixed up between navy blue and black. But I could tell the difference. But sometimes I'll get a little bit mixed up with it. It's like my school uniform. It was like navy blue pants, and I'm like, I thought it was black pants. But no, it's like, look a little bit closer, and it's navy blue actually. So I need some like, really, really close, stethoscope. No, I forgot what it was called. Those little scopes that scientists use. I forgot a moment what it was called. But like I'll say, I'll need like a telescope to look really closely. No, it's a microscope. I remember now. It's a microscope you would need to look deep inside of this clothing to see it's navy blue. Because you can look black from a distance. That's the moon in the background. Yeah, and the Titanic had sunk on a moonless night. And they're talking about also the life belts they would wear. And the life belts were really interesting. They were like, it was like cork. And when these people went into the water as an experiment, and they jumped in a pool, it really busted their jaw, these life belts, and they're very harsh to have on. But they keep, you afloat and a little bit warm. And it's like, imagine if people jumping off the ship, and it must have been a pain in the arse to be in that situation. And in the water, and yeah, different hues of blue, yes. In 20 minutes, the people, graphic warning, viewer discretion advised, the people were deleted in like 20 minutes. Some people, like the chef that drank a lot, the chef was able to survive because he drank so much his body stayed warm. And then the people were just kind of floating around, and then they were just like, the hypothermia took over. And yeah, it was really tough conditions, for them to be in. Because it's like they had life belts, but the thing was going down really, in ice cold, freezing water. And then it goes down, and some of the people sunk, and some of the people were just floating. There were ships that were that drifted out to way out at sea, and like some ship, like a couple weeks later, went and found some of the people that were just drifting like way off of course of where it actually sunk. So yeah, rest in peace to all the people that perished that horrible night. Horrible morning, technically. And Meridia said, yeah, sad on all levels. Absolutely. And a couple of people survived on there, like in the water. A couple of people did. And they just didn't have enough for all the people on board. And back up Turkish bath. It's like you have the Turkish bath, and it looks like a torture chamber. Like you stand inside of this metal room, in this metal cage, and it has these piercing sprays of water that spray all over your body like little needles. And there's like a clothed person that's like conducting and doing all this stuff for you. And then you lay down on this thing, and more water goes on you. And then there's like a couple of these different rooms when stuff like this happens in the Turkish bath. And they have this other waiting room, this wooden room, perfectly fine. Like, it's not perfectly fine because it's underwater for, at the time, 90 or 80 something years. And it had free-falled and crashed brutally inside on the ocean floor and all. But still, basically, it's in really good condition considering the circumstances, and the artwork was still there. So that's something interesting about the Turkish baths in there. And it was a special in there. And also with the North Korean Titanic movie, I think, as I said earlier, it's cringe. And it's just, this octopus goes and flings an iceberg at the ship, and it didn't. They're like, oh, it didn't really sink, but it did. And then this mouse falls in love with the woman, and it's like this animated movie. It's cringe. And the Titanic 666 is evil, and it's like this, the Titanic 3, which has to do with a sequel to the other degenerate movie about the Titanic, and it's like no hate on anybody or in general, but they'll have like the Titanic 666. It's like this black woman is the captain, and then you have these influencers on the ship. They go, oh my god, I'm so excited. They literally say that. Oh, and then this woman summons the people that passed away on the ship as revenge, and these zombies are going and having revenge on the people on the ship and wreaking havoc. It's just disgusting. It's blasphemy, to make a mockery of the people that were deleted that night just to make some money. And it's like on YouTube, the people were like making reaction videos about it. It just feels some cringe, man. And then, as I said, the Nazis made their own version of it, and it was like anti-British propaganda, and you have various different ones. So yeah, they could criticize it or whatever, but you can't ignore the Titanic because it changed a lot of things. And also something good from Titanic, I was talking about learning from mistakes earlier. With the Titanic now, you can, like, there's more lifeboats on. You have people that can't turn their radio off, and you turn the radio off, and you can't do that now. And you have ships in sight that could help a ship out, in my opinion. Hopefully it stays that way. And then you have, better precautions now, and more lifeboats are all people on board. Not just for half the people on board. Yeah, and Meridius had a good point here. He said, the stuff then was handcrafted. Oh, people back then made things very well. They built things very well, and they did it excellent. They did it excellent. They handcrafted. They wanted to change the world, and they did. And basically, you had that situation where, like, people, now with all, it's like more AI or robotically made now. But people built that with their bare hands. And also, what they did, with the movies, it's good for people to have respect for Titanic and not try to go and exploit it or make a monopoly off of it in a nefarious way. Like, what I mean is they're just doing it for money. Like, so it's interesting to see the different movies that were made about it. One of the movies, it goes underwater. And one of the movies, it tries to break up, but it's just some explosions. And James Cameron was like, all right, I got this. And he built the Titanic and sunk it again. Yeah, so, and I invite you all to go look at the reactions or the descriptions on YouTube, the YouTubers talking about the different things with these degenerate Titanic movies that they made. And now, one thing that Titanic reminds me of is a movie that came out in 2006 called Poseidon. And with Poseidon, they had this movie where, it like, I'm not trying to spoil it, but, it's kind of a similar situation. And, that was interesting. And that one reminded me of Titanic. I don't know if y'all have seen that. It came out in 2006. And I was a little kid when I saw it. And, yeah, so that is, the dining rooms in Titanic are very cool and all, etc. So, basically, the Californian, they didn't receive the call that Titanic was having a problem, or they went to sleep, and they saw that a ship was saying help, help, and they were flashing their rockets, and they were just like, maybe they're just doing it for their health, maybe they're doing it as a drill. It's like, you're not just going to go over there and look, you're just going to be like chilling. And like, there was another fishing boat that was just like chilling out there, and nobody did anything. So you can't hear the screaming people and all the commotion and the violins and all. You can't hear any of that. Like, come on. In my opinion, maybe they were too far away to hear it. But yeah, it's unfortunate that the ship was not helped, if it could have been helped, because the other ships were too far away. It was honorable for the captain to go down with the ship, because on the Costa Concordia, the captain of that ship ran away. He was scared, and he he went off. He went on land, and then like the National Guard of Italy was like, "Hey, you need to go back on the ship. You need to go back on the ship, dude, and help out your people there." And he said he wanted to direct the efforts from on land. But he had to be on the ship helping people. And he kept on saying, dude, do it, do it, do it. There's women and children there. He's like, well, I gotta go on land to help out. So basically, the guy went to jail for a long time, the captain of the Costa Concordia, for what he did. And also, Meridius said the old Poseidon Adventure movie was good. Oh yeah, absolutely. I have not seen that one. I know there was an older one, but yeah, that was I saw some clips of it. Yeah, very good. And basically, it's good that people are preserving Titanic's memory like we're doing right now, and like the incident that occurred. I think that it's good that we're doing that, because a lot of people don't give consideration to things. There's like and it's good that we're doing that here. So Titanic's one of my favorite topics I like to talk about, besides the aliens and different things I talk about on here. Yeah, and as I said, the weather is just very cloudy and very windy, and the moon is coming through, and it's just very, very, the weather's going to be kind of bad within the week. And I hope you all are doing good with y'all's week, Meridius and everybody else. Hope everything's going good with y'all. And my garden is doing really well. I'm glad that it's doing well. It's right over there. And, and so I have many different hobbies I like to do. I'm sure you all do. You all like to as well. All right, thank you, Meridius. I'm about to end it, but thank you for staying for a little while. All right, so and everybody else, that's here, welcome. I'm glad that you all stayed here. I was talking about the Titanic and the upload of this. It's going to take me a moment to I have to go back on the computer and upload the video. You're welcome. And because it's automatically private when it's a phone stream, so you all could see this in a moment. But I'm about to end the stream. I finished what I needed to do. So thank you all for watching and chilling with me. Or if you all were just passing through, thank you for passing through for this brief time frame. All right. So nice seeing you, Way of the Road and Middle Ground. I'm glad you all showed up. Thank you. And everybody have a good night.